start with a question addressed to Ansie, and I'm sure, Andre, you might also have some comments on it. And it really stems from what I've already picked up in the introductory remarks, and that is that there's quite a different approach between how Ansie introduced the King report and the comments that Andre made. Ansie's, from what I could hear, was really on the basis that you should follow the King report because it will be good for you to do so. And Andre immediately questioned, what is there in the King report that you are obliged to do? And Andre linked it, as a lawyer would, to the Companies Act and trying to find enforceable obligations that would arise. So there's that difference in approach, and obviously that must be right. You're dealing on the one hand with a lawyer, and of course Ansie on the other hand, who is the author of the corporate governance document. So Ansie, when I looked at the King report, one thing that struck me is this concept of a responsible corporate citizen. And I saw a number of things there that from a legal perspective was quite interesting. It seemed to me that the King report suggests that there are certain things that should be done, or can we call it corporate governance obligations, relating to tax, relating to the environment, relating to a number of other things which go well beyond what we would understand to be statutory duties or statutory obligations. Can you perhaps give us some insight as to how an entity, which is ultimately a profit-seeking organization, should reconcile, on the one hand, the obligations arising from statute or from any other legal source, and the King report, which seems to suggest that there are also obligations, but which are not necessarily binding to the same extent.
Yes. So those of you who know the King 3 report well will know that the fact that we're looking at the obligations of a corporation in society more broadly than merely statutory obligations. It's of course not something new. But maybe I can just quickly recap what it's about. These concepts were introduced in King 3, but what we've done in King 4 is we link all of the concepts. So we start with leadership, and as in King 3, we're saying corporate governance is nothing other than ethical and effective leadership. Effective leadership on an ethical foundation. And the reason why we're linking it to leadership is because we don't believe that corporate governance is a mechanical process. We don't believe that it consists only of the mechanics of it. So you know that old traditional definition of corporate governance, it's a system by which companies are directed and controlled. We take it further because we're saying corporate governance is more than about processes, procedures, structures, policies, and that sort of thing. Corporate governance is a leadership issue. Now let's just think about leadership. So I think most of us would agree that to lead a company without being cognizant of the external environment in which it operates would just be purely short-sighted. I mean, I don't know if you could call that leadership even. So the leadership should direct the company and navigate it through the circumstances in its external environment. Now in King 4 we make use of a number of concepts to just convey this idea. So we start with the leadership, as I said, and then we say we believe that the company is an integral part of society. The organization is an integral part of the society. Organizations are merely the way that we as human beings, that society organizes itself for efficiency purposes. So to see the organization as an island who needs to look at self-interest without having account to the interest of society and the natural environment is not the way to go. And in King 3 already, the concept of ethics has been expanded. So ethics is not only about how the company operates internally, it also links and connects to its relationship that it has with its external stakeholders and the natural environment. Now, the reason why we're saying this makes business sense as well is because of that old saying that no business can ultimately succeed in a society that fails. So by having regard to societal conditions, environmental conditions, you actually shape the future environment in which you are doing your business. So we're saying we don't hook it on a statutory obligation. We are saying it makes good business sense. And therefore we also talk about sustainable development in King 4. Now we're intentionally using the term sustainable development mostly and not sustainability, because sustainability has certain connotations. One of its main connotations is that it's about conservation, and that's where the term actually has its roots. And then also it's seen as corporate social investment and corporate social responsibility. Now we're saying green issues, corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility, they are all good things. But those things need to be integrated with the business to generate business value. If you're just going to have charitable endeavors, which has no link to your business, it's good. But we're saying rather look at it as sustainable development. In other words, how do we develop the organization in a way that's sustainable for the organization, the society, and the environment in which it operates? So we're saying we should marry economic imperatives with societal and environmental imperatives. That's the vantage point of King 4. Now, as to its link with statute, we do think that I always think that future generations will judge us with how we defined business performance, and then they will look to us as we look at those generations who supported slave trade, and I strongly believe that this is the case. The way that we are operating currently is not sustainable. And I think even the legislation you can see is moving in that direction. The new Companies Act is talking about having as its objectives promoting human rights as it's contained in the Constitution. It talks about promoting the company as a vehicle for not only economic but also social advancement. Then we get the social and ethics committees in the Companies Act, and then there's also the fact that many of the rights that were traditionally reserved for shareholders, like say derivative actions, those rights have now been expanded in our Companies Act, and our Companies Act is somewhat unique internationally in that regard, in that those actions are also available to other stakeholders. So I think the thinking is moving in that direction, and then we know that there are court cases saying that, well, how do we measure the acting in the best interest of the company? And then it refers to the King reports by saying, well, has it become a norm for directors to behave in this way? And as soon as it becomes a norm for directors, well, then it becomes the standard against which directors' conduct is measured. So I'm sure
thanks, Ansie. I think that's exactly right. I mean, as I understand it, the King report is an aspirational document. So it is setting the standard as to what you believe it should be, not necessarily what it is already today.
Yes.
And that has been the history of the King report from its inception, both actually in the private sector and in the public sector, where the older versions have already found some application. Andre, but